Welcome to Badger Beer Hour, where I'm joined by my good friend, the Wisconsin beer baron, Chris Drosner, and my good friend, Landon Cherney from Taproom Travelers.
Hey. That's Chris O. Drosner, by the way.
Yeah. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll jump to the news.
I guess that's me, huh? So to open this month's news, we've got an answer to a mystery that's had the attention of Badger Beer Hour for months.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about the past several months about this burgeoning brewery beer scene in West Allis. It used to be that West Allis didn't have any breweries. Westallion Brewing opened back in 2017, and then came the flood. So Lehman Brewing opened last fall. We had news of Perspective Brewing looking to open there as well. Date a little bit uncertain at this point. But the big thing that's had our attention is what brewery is setting up shop in the former Perfect Screw Products building. I know you guys remember Perfect Screw. You couldn't stop talking about the pun there. It's not a pun. It's just they used to make screws there. Screws. And they were really good screws. In fact, maybe like perfect screws. So we finally have an answer. And it is Ope. Ope Brewing, OPE, is looking at opening this fall. And there's some credentials in the team behind this. Kyle Siskey is going to be the head brewer at Explorium. He's involved. Adam Anders is head cellarman at Explorium. And John Anopa is a longtime friend of Kyle Siskey. Don't know a lot about him, at least brewing wise. Appears to be a home brewer, but that's the team. And as we kind of suspected from the size of this building, it's 12,650 square feet, which is a lot. My usual kind of back and napkin math is about, if you're fully built out and devoting most of your space to brewing space, it's usually about a square foot per barrel per year. So that would put them, like 10,000 barrels, maybe. That's really big. Obviously, they won't start that big, but anyway, this is going to be a different deal than those other breweries in West Allis that are smaller, kind of more focused on taproom sales. Ope will have a 15-barrel brew house and canning line planned from the start. So big. And there'll be plenty of public-facing space as well, though. Big patio with fire pits, volleyball courts, and space for games like cornhole and bocce. And they're also going to have a place for multiple food trucks. So welcome to West Allis, Ope Brewing.
When is this?
Opening this fall. Yeah, at least that's the plan. You never know. But
yeah. Well, it sounds like, I'm sorry, it sounds like it's perfect place to open during COVID.
Yeah. I mean,
spaces,
and
people out.
The location of this is kind of in the center of this, what had been kind of a pretty industrial area of West Allis. So there's a lot of open space, and a lot of it's been redeveloped for like community areas. I'm pretty sure the West Allis Farmers Market is located not far from this area. So, I think it's kind of developing into kind of a walkable, like multi-stop type place. So yeah, West Allis looking up.
Lynn, did I cut you off?
Nope.
Cool.
Oh, it's Ope. Not Nope.
I mean, so real quick though, having all that space costs a lot. So you're going to have to be able to pay for that. So again, I don't know where we'll be in COVID in 3 months. We didn't know where we were going to be 3 months ago. But again, having that space, I think is going to be, good, and they can plan. And then once we go back to normal, they can, crunch it in and still use that space. So
yeah.
But
remember the way that this surfaced was that they were buying this property from the city. So, former industrial building. There's going to be a lot of work that'll need to be done, I'm sure. Well, maybe, I don't know. Industrial buildings are good for breweries. So, I think that's, it sounds like a lot of capital in on the front end, I think, to your point. So, Yeah, I don't know. Explorian beer is pretty good, so we'll see. I think the track record here speaks pretty or bodes well for going forward.
Yeah.
Space sounds nice. I like
Yeah, it does. Yeah, very nice.
I mean, who doesn't want to play bocce?
I mean, or volleyball. I mean,
Oh, yeah, okay, sure. That's like sweaty though. I mean, somebody does.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
We've got some new brewery action in another part of the state as well.
Yeah, Wisconsin Dells is getting another brewery. So I've only seen this red, so I'm not sure how to pronounce this, but it looks like latte stone, like a coffee thing. But
Mhm.
I wonder if it's actually Lattice Stone Brewery. I don't know. Whatever. We'll call it Lattice Stone Brewery. I don't know. Is opening on a vacant lot. It's opening in the vacant lot in the main drag of Broadway. You know, kind of the everybody knows Broadway in Wisconsin Dells. It's about 6 blocks east of the bridge over the Wisconsin River. So just kind of give you an idea. And it's an open lot. And so this will be a new building with a big patio, an outdoor music space, and a kitchen. The Latta Stone Facebook page refers to it as a nano brewery, and says the food menu will be focusing on Pacific Islands cuisine. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And it's being opened by current Milwaukee residents Ryan and Jennifer DiGiacomo. Wisconsin Dells, of course, was the site of the late Port Huron Brewing, whose closing we reported on last month. There's also Wisconsin Dells Brewing / Moose Jaw. That's so it's not the only brewery in town.
Yeah, I'm thrilled with that one. And that, it doesn't replace Port Huron, but
well, the cuisine's got me intrigued.
Yeah, I cannot say I've heard of another brewery in Wisconsin that has Pacific Islands cuisine.
I don't think I've heard of any brewery, period, that has that. So that's good. Yeah,
I don't even know where to like. I guess like Hawaiian is a Pacific Island, so
yeah.
That's
maybe if they get like street food.
I'm somewhat familiar with, but
sure.
Yeah, very exciting.
Yeah. So we've got some interesting beer release news, not just new breweries, but we've got new beer to talk about too, right, Chris?
Yes.
Yeah. So let's start with, this is not, I mean, there's a new release here, but I think it's really interesting to talk about because it's the latest in an ongoing collaboration between Carbon 4 in Madison and one of the state's biggest businesses, Quick Trip. Urge Tracker is a peanut butter stout based on the convenience chain's Urge Tracks peanut butter cup ice cream, kind of like Moose Tracks. And it's the third beer in the Carbon 4 Quick series, which is only available at Quick Trip. Have you guys had this beer yet?
I'll be honest with you. I saw that you sort of reviewed it on Twitter.
Yeah,
and I said no.
it's very, very sweet, which is a pretty interesting shift from their first beer in this series, which was also a stout. It was called Glazer Bean, so it was a chocolate donut coffee stout, and the chocolate was a little bit more on the bitter side. This one, I think, they brewed it with lactose and probably vanilla. So, it's more of a pastry profile, despite having actual pastries in the previous one. But that beer was more balanced. I mean, the coffee was nice, but it wasn't particularly sweet. And I wonder if, with a collab like this, the audience is a much more broad set of people than probably normally drink craft beer. So I wonder if they wanted something that was a little bit more amplified as far as like the chocolate aspect or the donut aspect or the peanut butter. And this one is not subtle at all. It is a lot of peanut butter. It is a lot of chocolate sweet, So yeah, I mean, not for everybody, but this is a pretty big deal for a brewery like Carbon 4, getting premium guaranteed placement for what's essentially a new beer. I mean, it is a new beer in one of the biggest retailers in the state, particularly in markets where they might not be super well developed up in the Northwest or
Right.
Western Wisconsin. I had a big long discussion with brewmaster Ryan Koga from Carbon 4 back in fall 2019 before this series launched, and one of the things that's really that I thought was really interesting about this is that Carbon 4 is essentially making store brand beers here for Quick Trip, and Quick Trip, their store brands are, I think they're pretty well regarded as high quality, and I don't know, I like all their stuff that they make there, and but they're all kind of clearly Quick Trip branded. Like you've got the Urge line of snacks, and I forget what all the other stuff is named, but Nature's Touch for like milk, and and Quick Trip makes all that stuff or processes it or whatever. They're not outsourcing that to other companies like Costco or something would. These are true store brands that they are made. Almost all of them up at their big plant and food plants on Alaska where they're based. So this is a major departure for Quick Trip, and that it's a I think it recognizes that beer is different than those other things, that you want to put it in expert hands. And I think the exclusivity and the authenticity of the Carbon 4 brand, they wanted that to come through. Ryan talked about the labels. They said, no, we don't want Nature's, we don't want Urge whatever labels. We want your artists to do labels in your style with that kind of, Carbon 4, obviously the Fantasy Factory label with the ninja, or the ninja cat with the gun on the unicorn,
legendary.
That's the thing that their labels are all about. And they wanted to extend that into this kind of, Quick Trip kind of universe of things. So I think it's a pretty interesting, I think it's fascinating, even if I don't love this latest beer. And certainly this beer, some people are going to love it. It's, if you want your beer to taste like sweet peanut butter cups, this is your bag. So, I don't know.
Yeah. Sorry. Lewis said, yeah, he's found the first two, both all right.
Yeah. The second one was
Carbon for a Quick Trip. Yes, they are, Rick.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Not Minnesota Quick Trip, Rick. Probably not.
Yes, that's right. That's true. It's only.
Yeah.
Although I think they were talking about working. This is part of the thing. Quick Trip has 500 stores or something. They have a lot of locations, and only about half of them or so I think are in Wisconsin. So this is obviously a growth plan for Carbon 4. Getting their foot in the door in other states with other distributors. There's still all this stuff still has to go through beer distributors. So. That's a foot in the door for Iowa, Minnesota. I think they might be out in the Dakotas a little bit, but so that's definitely part of the deal here.
Not in my Dakota.
Not in Minnesota, not yet.
All right.
So we got more new beers.
Yeah.
So speaking of stouts, there's a really special one coming out from Lakefront.
Yeah. So I've been a big fan of Lakefront's My Turn series for a long time. This is where different employees from all over the brewery, different operations, work with the brewers to create a beer using their name. And I think more recently they've switched the packaging up to include a likeness of the employee who created this thing on the packaging. It's a great way for the brewery to mix up its seasonals, kind of do different things for a pretty, old craft brewery by craft beer standards, to do new things and try new kind of more contemporary brewing trends without kind of breaking the brand. They're doing it in a way that makes sense. And obviously it's a great glimpse inside kind of the people who bring you the beer. They're selling it, they're making it, they're packaging it, they're doing all this stuff. Doing the accounting for it, they had their longtime accountant put together a pretty nice Doppelbock, I believe it was, a couple years ago. Well, next My Turn beer that's dropping right about now. It should be hitting shelves in Milwaukee right now, and then the rest of the state thereafter. Is a posthumous tribute to the employee whose turn, they kind of rotate through the different, they rotate through employees based on seniority, do 4 a year, and it just happened that Al's turn was coming up, and he didn't make it to his turn. He died of pancreatic cancer last September. Al Cluth is his name. He was a warehouse manager for the Lakefront distribution facility in River West, separate from their main brewery. And some of his family members were on hand for the packaging when this beer was bottled up. It sounds like a pretty straight. I haven't had it yet, but it sounds like a pretty straightforward American stout, 6.7%. There was a tweet from Ryan Hillisland, who just happened to be the author of the last My Turn beer, My Turn Ryan. You guys might remember that one. He tweeted that, I'm just going to quote, I got to read this here. It's like the 8th most important thing about this beer, but I think Al is one of the best beers we've ever made. So that's pretty high praise from a brewery that's been making craft beer for more than 30 years.
Yeah.
And one of those other important things that he mentioned, Lakefront is donating $1 from the sale of every 6-pack, $4 a case, to the American Cancer Society. So go find some Al.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
Looks like a good beer. Yeah, good cause. Looks like a good beer.
Yeah.
Oh.
Get more than 1 6-pack.
Right.
Get a bunch of them.
Make sure it's good.
Yeah.
Right.
You got to test it a lot. So then we're going to wrap up this month's news with an interesting story about Wisconsin's own New Glarus.
Yeah, we can't not talk about New Glarus on Badger Beer Hour here.
Sure.
So this week, the national site Good Beer Hunting posted a story that was essentially centered on the question of why New Glarus hasn't expanded sales out of state during the pandemic. We've seen this from a lot of high demand breweries over the last year, expanding their geographic territory, distribution territory, to make up for lost sales, especially in draft production. Here in Wisconsin, we've seen a bunch of these from kind of near and far. We've had Other Half, Aslan, Dovetail, Phase 3 from Chicagoland as well. And then the big one that kind of makes this question seem plausible for a brewery like New Glarus is Allagash. They came in was it June or late May, and they told me that, I wrote a column about this one, and they said, yeah, this is a pandemic move. We wouldn't be doing this if it weren't, which is pretty unusual. And they were pretty upfront about it being kind of a let's see how it goes kind of thing. If they send a bunch of trucks here and the beer doesn't sell through very, very quickly, they were pretty clearly ready to pull it back, and that would be that. But I don't know where everything's at with Allagash now, but I mean, Allagash is still on our shelves, and I don't know. I get the sense that it's moving pretty well, but I guess maybe that's just my buying habits. I don't know. Anyway, New Glarus's numbers last year do kind of give some credence to the idea that this could be a possibility. Production was down about 12% last year to a nice pat number of 206,000 barrels. I'm sure Joe would that'd be really tough for him to go down to 206,000 barrels. I mean, it's the biggest craft brewery in the state by far. So with that kind of math, it's not unreasonable to think that New Glarus could have moved some of that lost volume of beer, in Illinois and or Minnesota if it wanted to. And I think we know where this is going. I mean, New Glarus talks all the time about only in Wisconsin. It's clearly a core value to them. But they've also articulated pretty well in the past that it's also a business value, that they want to do this because it makes the most sense for the business. And the reporter here basically got, who's the excellent Kate Bernat, she's awesome, got basically a LOL no from the New Glarus sales manager she talked to. The exact quote was no, never. So another doubling down on the idea that Illinois is going to be getting this anytime soon. And like this makes sense to us because we've been hearing that forever. The last time New Glarus was sold out of state was in 2003 in Illinois. So, but to me the interesting part of the story was that New Glarus remained maxed out in production in 2020, even though they dropped, even though that production dropped. And the reason that is they maintained full employment during the entire pandemic, but they divided workers into cohorts with fewer people per shift. So basically, they could do social distancing, and then it made quarantining easier if they had any positive virus cases. They closed the beer depot and the beer garden, which is just amazing if you haven't been. That was all closed all year. So that cut into production. But world domination is never. It seems pretty obvious that has never been a goal of New Glarus. So Kate actually interviewed me for the story, and I was kind of embarrassed that I hadn't actually even really considered the question that she was like. The core question of the story is like, why didn't New Glarus do this? And I laughed when she said it. I'm like, yeah, that shows you kind of how much we've just internalized this only in Wisconsin mantra is permanent. Like, it's a real valid question to anybody who, like follows New Glarus, I think from a national perspective. But like, it never occurred to me that this would be something that New Glarus would do. So, and by the way, there's a lot of interesting numbers in this story. And Kate was told by, New Glarus' sales manager that they made about 6% of all the beer sold in Wisconsin and about a full third of the state's craft purchases. So,
wow.
Yeah. And, 6% might not sound like a lot, but if you do the kind of ballpark math and go backwards on this, that puts Wisconsin beer sales at about 3.4 million barrels a year. I think Mark Garthwaite from the Brewers Guild tweeted a response to this today that the actual number, according to the Department of Revenue, was something like 4.1 million barrels, something like that. But that includes fermented malt beverages or flavored malt beverages and seltzers. So if you subtract that, and there's a lot of that made because the City Brewery in La Crosse, which actually was just sold again. All right, we might have to. Well, anyway, maybe we'll talk about that next year or next month if that's interesting. But anyway, so I think it's plausible that there's about 7 million barrels or 700,000 barrels of that stuff produced here. Or no, that would be sales. So I don't know. Okay. Anyway, if you take New Glarus at its word and say that they made 6% of the beer sold in Wisconsin, that translates to 3.4 million barrels. Wisconsin's population over age 21 is 3.7 million people. So that is a barrel per person ish. You factor in seltzers and fermented malt beverages, and it actually turns out to be more than a barrel per person per year per capita. That's a lot. That's a lot of beer.
That's a lot.
Anyway,
I drink about a barrel a year, maybe a little more.
A spotted cow?
Yeah, but
no.
You're like above average, right?
I'm above average.
Grandma Cherney up there, she's not drinking a barrel a year. And that, folks, is the Badger Beer Hour news for March.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, deep breath after that. All right. Tonight I am excited to welcome Joe Yeado. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeado.
All right. I've said it many times, or I've said it many times, and that was the first time I pronounced it. He is the founder and president of Gathering Place Brewing in Milwaukee. They opened in the city's River West neighborhood in 2017, and this Saturday, the brewery is hosting its third, now annual, Lager and Friends Festival. Joe, welcome to Badger Beer Hour.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for the invite. Good to join you.
All right. Thanks for coming on. All right. Let's start with Lager and Friends. This is coming up Saturday. Have you checked the sales number? What's the sales numbers? I know we had 4 tickets available at the beginning, or like this afternoon. Is that?
I think we're down to 3.
Oh boy, you guys are going like hotcakes. Better get in there. Oh, look at there's the URL right there, right on the little ticker. Okay, so this is a pretty great event. Why the focus on lagers?
Good question. So we started this. The idea for this came in the summer of 2018. At that point, we'd been open for almost a year. We were coming up on our year anniversary, and we found a really great reception for our beer, specifically our lagers. And, we got to thinking, and there was a lot of ink spilled and digital ink spilled about how no one in this city is making lagers. And every time we would read a story like that, my entire staff, we would just kind of shake our heads and say, what are you talking about? This town was built on lagers. Our friends over on State Street, I'm sure, would have something to say about that, as would our friends at Lakefront, who, 2 of their flagships since the late 1980s have been lagers. So there's always been good lager in this town. And so we got to thinking about having a lager-only festival. And this is really a unique festival as compared to other ones in Milwaukee, in that we purposely kept it small. So we only invited 19 breweries, so there would be 20 breweries altogether. We invited our friends from River West, Black Husky, Lakefront, and Company. And then we purposefully reached far beyond the city and far beyond the state. Our head brewer, Corey Blodgett, he's from around Milwaukee, but he'd been brewing professionally in Portland and Seattle for almost 20 years before coming back to help me get started. And I had lived on the East Coast for some time and knew folks in the brewing scene there. So we wanted to purposefully bring great lager beer from around the country by breweries that did not distribute in Wisconsin. That's an important distinction. We wanted to bring them to Milwaukee so that people here could taste this great beer. But the other thing is, we wanted to get a collection of like-minded brewers from around the country in the same room. We wanted to bring them to Milwaukee and show them that there is great craft beer being made here. And the first event happened at the end of March in 2019. I actually did not attend that festival because, as fate would have it, our son was born that day. He was a few days past his due date, and my wife and I were driving to the hospital at 11 o'clock the night before the festival after her water broke. And we were just laughing because, of course, it would happen this way.
Yeah, 2 babies came on the same day, I guess.
Yeah. So I do have to say that I booked the venue at Turner Hall before I knew when the due date was. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
You weren't trying to get out of anything.
No, not at all.
Didn't work.
But by accounts of people who attended, they said they really loved it. I had many of the brewers say this was their favorite festival, in part because we designed it to be easy. They didn't have to lug jockey boxes or anything around. We built a custom draft system, so all they had to do was drop their keg off by Thursday, and they show up and they have a good time. And so I wasn't there, but Jim and Russ Klisch pulled Corey, our brewer, aside and at the end and said, "This is great. Please keep doing this. If you don't ever want to keep doing it, we'll take it over for you." And that meant a lot. I have a lot of respect for Jim and Russ and the things that they've accomplished. So that compliment really made me think that there is a need for this. There's a demand for this, and we're happy it's back for its 3rd iteration. We would love for it to be in person again, but we're just not quite there yet.
Yeah, I was at that inaugural event, and I must say it was so different than every other festival, and I've been to a lot. Where it was. I mean, like, here's a great example. Like, this is the glass. I mean, like it's getting a little glare there, but like it's a big glass, and like this is basically the pour that you'd get, because you're getting lager beers that are not 8% ABV. You're not getting those imperial stouts that, I mean, and I understand why breweries want to bring those to the festivals, and I do enjoy that. It's not like but this was a different. It was just a different vibe. Everybody seemed really happy to be there, and I think that was part of. I think you kind of explained part of why it was. People were kind of taken care of, and I don't know. It was just a great vibe, and great beer too. I mean, it was awesome to have. I'm trying to remember some of the. I know Breakside was there from Portland.
We had Freem.
Yeah,
Freem has won so many medals at GABF. We had Jack from Jack's Abbey,
right?
Out in Framingham, Massachusetts. These are, and you mentioned Dovetail before. Dovetail and Metropolitan. This is the top echelon of lager makers in the country, and we aspire to be in that company. And so we were certainly flattered that they would come to Milwaukee, and a small, modest festival put on by a 2-year-old brewery.
Yeah. And what was how did, I mean, obviously the pandemic hit, and as I recall, it was like, I think lockdown started 2 weeks before the date or something. I remember thinking, oh no, it's Lager and Friends isn't going to happen.
That was the most stressful week of my life. The NBA was still playing on Thursday. March Madness was happening on Friday, and they canceled. And then we decided to cancel the festival on Sunday and let people know.
Okay, so it was the same week as all the closures.
It was supposed to be the 20th of last year, and I think the city shut down on Saint Patrick's Day. So happy anniversary, I guess.
Yeah.
So we decided to pause and let everyone know, all the ticket purchasers know, and then we just hunkered down and tried to figure out what was happening. I think there was some maybe false hope that this was going to blow over in 4 to 6 weeks and that we could do the festival in June. We actually reserved a date at the venue for June, and as time went on, it became more and more clear that that wasn't going to be the case. So we made the decision to shift it to a virtual component. But it was important to me that we put on a production, that we have something of value to give. And so we, rather than it be like a Zoom meeting where everyone's in there, we did it as a webinar where we had 3 different panel discussions featuring some of the brewers who were planning on flying to Milwaukee for the festival. So we had the brewer from East Brother in just outside of Oakland, California. We had Chris Loring from Notch Brewing in Salem, Massachusetts, and Carlton Graham, who's the head brewer at Kansas City Beer Company. That was maybe the highlight of the festival. These 2 brewers talking about technical lager brewing, and it was really fascinating. And I have to say, you were a moderator last year, and we certainly appreciate that. But we got a lot of really good feedback that it was a beer festival that was virtual, but it kept people's attention. So we knew that we could do this again. Unfortunately, it had to be virtual again, but we've greatly changed the type of programming, and I'm really excited for the conversations we're going to have. Yeah. Can you talk? Who's on the docket for this year? So, knowing that it was going to be virtual again, we wanted to make a few changes. One of which is, because we would have planning this time, we were going to put together a mixed 12-pack of lagers from around the state of Wisconsin. And again, we purposely focused on breweries that don't necessarily distribute to Milwaukee. We wanted to kind of shine a light to the farther reaches of the state. And then for the programming aspect, we knew we wanted it to be different. We didn't just want it to be a retread of last year. So I thought, wouldn't it be really cool if we got people from Europe to tune into this? So I reached out through some contacts at Good Beer Hunting to their international editor, who is a writer he's from California, but he's based in Prague and has lived there for 20 some years. His name is Evan Rail. He is as much an expert on Czech beer as you'll ever find, although he's too modest to say that. He'll say that he's an expert in drinking Czech beer. And that's a title I aspire to. And then our other panelist is Dr. Martin Zunkov, and he is the head of research and development at the brewing school at Weihenstephaner, which is outside of Munich. It's the oldest continuously operated brewery in the world. And that was a fantastic connection from one of our regulars, Dr. Bettina Arnold, who is a professor at UWM in the archaeology program, and she has done a lot of research about ancient beer. So feel very fortunate to have those two, and they will be joining us live from Munich and from Prague. So really looking forward to that.
Nice. And I mean, we'll say like the brewing school at Weihenstephaner that's not exactly like, the oldest continuously operated brewery in the world is not like 300 years old. We are talking 13, I think it started in the 14th century. So, I mean, that's essentially the entire history of like modern, or not even modern, but like brewing. I mean, since brewing was really like industrial scale brewing was a thing. So, people ask like sometimes like, why is lager so crisp and why are these breweries so good at doing it in the Czech Republic and in Germany? And the short answer could be, well, they've had 400 years to practice. They've had 400 years to work out the kinks. They know what they're doing. Yeah, absolutely. And then the other panel, which I am chairing, but you can talk about the guests.
Thanks for coming back for another round.
Yeah.
So we wanted to kind of shift and have a focus on American breweries, but we wanted to reach a little beyond Wisconsin. And the way it worked out, we have Lisa Allen from Heater Allen, and they are a lager-only house just south of Portland, 30 or 40 miles south of Portland, Oregon. And then we have Alisa Mercado, who is the founder of Rhythm Brewing in Connecticut, and she launched the brewery with a flagship lager. And so I thought it was really interesting in 2018 or 2019 to launch with a flagship lager. And if you also think about it, Oregon is the home of American hops, Oregon and Washington, and New England is the epicenter of IPAs for the last couple of years. So we have these two brewers and two women who are so invested in lager brewing in the epicenter of hops and hop culture. I'm so curious to pick their brain a little bit on why they chose to do that and how they see lager fitting into the larger beer realm.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to get to Gathering Place a little bit, but Red's got a comment. Let's see here. Maybe the highlight of 2020 is an afternoon where I felt like things are going to be okay after all. Yeah, it was a really nice day, and being inside and having a few beers with it really did feel like the hive mind thing, that whole like-minded individuals thing, that is real. And there's a kind of a community around lagers that, at least among like lager aficionados, that reminds me of, it feels like very different from the community around, say, hazy IPA or beer trading or kind of other aspects of the beer hobby, I guess. I don't know, like around beer culture, I guess. That I don't know. Like I imagine that's part of the reason that there is a Lager and Friends.
Yeah, it's a lot of things, but the simple response to that is, we frequently use the hashtag Lager is life, and we are by no means the only ones. And that is on purpose, and that is by design. And these are beers that are relatively moderate alcohol level. They are meant to be consumed over a duration of time. They're meant to be enjoyed with family and friends in beer gardens, and you spend an afternoon and your kids are running around, and it's fine because you're just enjoying company with these people. That is where our brewing philosophy lies. We make a lot of beers that fall into that category. And this is one of the things I really hope will be part of the conversation on Saturday, is hearing the German and the Czech perspective about how lager fits into their culture and their society. And then I hope to hear the same things from Lisa in Oregon and Alisa in Connecticut, that these are beers that, from a technical standpoint, are very hard to make, or hard to make them well. And so it takes a level of skill to execute it. But these are not beers that are blowing up Untapped. These are not beers that are being traded and shipped around the world. I could go on a
point. That's not the point of lager, right?
Right. I could go on a big soapbox about
3 in a day and not be falling down.
Yeah. I mean, the Czechs drink per capita almost more than anyone in the world, and that's because we have lager at lunch, and then maybe one after work, and then a lager with dinner. And it's not about intoxication. It's about, this is just part of our culture. I could go on a soapbox about Untapped, but I will just point out that if we were just looking at ratings, I think Pilsner Urquell, which is the home of the style of Pilsner, has like a 3.3 rating on Untapped. And I think that we could explore that in its own hour-long podcast. But this beer, which is the archetype of the style, does not seem to get the respect it deserves by a certain segment of that Untapped crowd. And that's not necessarily who the festival is for. The festival is for people who want to explore a different side of beer. And lager is not monolithic. And that's one of the great things about the 12-pack box we have. We have Box, and we have Helles Lager, and one of our entries is a black lager. And then Giant Jones is doing a lagered Bière de Garde, which is a French style. So the box this year really incorporates everything from the dark, strong beers to the light, modest, very drinkable beers.
Company that has the Baltic Porter?
Yes, I'm very excited to try that. Our friends at Company just down the road submitted a Baltic Porter, which that is a beer style with a fascinating history.
Yeah, very cool. All right, so I do want to ask a little bit about Gathering Place. Can you give us kind of you alluded to it a little bit, but can you kind of give us the elevator pitch on what your brewery is about?
Yeah, so we make beers that bring people together. The whole point is we want to use beer as a way to bring people together. We make beers that are European inspired. So I have spent time living in Germany, and I've had a chance to travel through Belgium and the Czech Republic. I'm really inspired by these beers. Corey, who is our head brewer, has family connections to the Cologne area of Germany. And so Kolsch is his favorite style, and that's why Treffpunkt Kolsch is our flagship, and Treffpunkt in German means gathering place. So that's how we tie it all together. But we do make a lot of lagers. We do make Belgian style beers and as well as double IPAs and things like that. But where we've really found our niche in the last couple of years is making these traditionally inspired European ales and lagers. Right,
and for those not familiar, Gathering Place is a small brewery. It's primarily taproom and draft focus. So that's, obviously the past 12 months have been kind of a huge challenge for just about every brewery. But how have you gotten to this point where we're talking about the brewery and the present tense and you can talk a little bit about your pandemic pivots?
Yeah, well, I certainly had a lot less gray hair before this time last year. It's not been easy. I think sometimes people forget that breweries are small businesses, and small businesses are a bit of a roller coaster, even in good times. So you throw in a once in a century global pandemic, and that's really created a lot of challenges. I give a lot of credit to our team. We're a small but very nimble team in terms of being able to pivot. First, as you mentioned, we were primarily focused on our tap room and then supplying kegged beer to bars and restaurants in the Milwaukee area and just a little bit in Madison. And then overnight, kind of had to throw out that business plan and that business model and pivot to go sales through the tap room. And we had started canning in the summer of 2019, so we were already in cans on shelves at a few accounts using a mobile canner. But we had to very quickly pivot to instead of putting 80% of our beer in kegs and 20% in cans, we were putting 100% into cans. And our sales team, myself and one of our staff, Dan, did really good work moving those cans out the door in the summertime. And Dan has done great work expanding into Madison. I'm sure you'll bring this up, but your beer bracket sponsored by Festival Foods. Well, we are now at Festival Foods, and that's something I could not have even imagined a year ago prior to COVID, that we would be on the store shelves at places like Woodman's and Festival Foods throughout Southeast Wisconsin. But we had to make changes as a result of COVID. One of those changes was going strong into cans, and that resulted in us. We were doing such volumes in cans with the mobile canner that it was more economical for us to buy our own canning line. Mm-hmm. Now, if you had told me a year and a half ago that a brewery making less than 500 barrels a year would buy their own canning line, I would have said, that brewery is crazy. What are they doing? That is a huge waste of money.
Oh, how little we knew a year ago, huh?
Right.
Imagine those naive people back then.
Yes. But that's the reality of where the market is now and where the demand for our cans are, which I'm really pleased about.
Awesome. And just really quick, we got to move on here. Survival has been, I think, kind of like, the first bullet point on the list. But I mean, you guys are actually announced an expansion during all this time. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we're in the process of opening up a satellite tap room at the north end of Bayview, in a new apartment building that was built on the site of Hamburger Mary's on Kinnickinnick and Beecher. It's a 6-story apartment building. The whole first floor will be a food hall and marketplace. So I worked with the developers, and we actually signed the lease on March 6th of last year. So right before the world melted. So this project has been on ice for a while, but it's about to be back up and running. And had a conversation with the developer last week, and they're targeting a July open. So we're very excited about that.
Awesome. I did not know about the timing of that. Must have been like an extra, like you got a diaper for the baby and you got a diaper for yourself, because you probably just crapped your pants after committing to something like that, and then all this happens. I can't imagine.
Yeah, it's something we're really excited about. Bayview has been very good to us. It's the neighborhood that I live in, and I'm really excited to be in that space with somewhere. They're still trying to figure out the count, but somewhere between kind of 8 and 12 food vendors and other retailers. I think it's going to be a lot of energy in a very, very cool space. And we will be the only beer supplier in that space. So it's very happy about that.
A lot of thirsty people.
That's right.
Yeah. All right, Joe, thanks for coming on. And I am very much looking forward to seeing you on Saturday and digging into my Lagerfest box.
Well, thanks so much for having me. This has been fun.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe.
Hello. I am here to talk about a beer that is trending really hard here in Wisconsin, which is called Straight Outta Amherst from Central Waters. If you're a beer drinker in Wisconsin, I shouldn't have to tell you about Central Waters. If you're not a beer person in Wisconsin watching, Central Waters is one of our favorite beer breweries. I mean, it's by far. I mean, you talk about New Glarus, and then after that, you have to talk about Central Waters. So one of the fun things that we're going to do today is I'm going to try this beer. I'm going to spotlight this beer. I've never had it before. So wonderful. Here we go. I've heard nothing but good about it from our associate producer and newsman Chris Drosner. Beer Baron has heard really good things about it. If the pour, so it describes itself here. Let's pull this up as let's pull it up so I can read it. As a double IPA, West Coast style, brewed with a touch of oats, double dry hop with Centennial and Sultana hops. And we'll get to the Sultana hops in a second. But I'm going to get to this beer right now. %9 ABV, and Untapped says 80 IBUs. It is a big, piney smelling. If there's fruit in this, I mean, there's a little fruity end in here, but I mean, it's just more pine. This is really a takeoff of old school West Coast IPAs, which I've always found fantastic, but they could be overbearing and overwhelming for some people. This one, though, the out on this one is not as hoppy as I thought it was going to be. With the high IBUs at 80 and high ABV at 9. But what happened? What I think's going on here, and we'll bring on the beer baron here in a second after I'm done bloviating over this beer a little bit. But what I suspect is happening is there's a hop in here. And I need to pull this up live and do this. Called Sultana. So this is double dry hop with Sultana and Centennial. Centennial is one we all know. But Sultana is a new one. I had to look this up, and I thought that we could go through and talk about it a little bit. Sultana hops here, otherwise known as Denali hops. You might have heard of Denali, but so over here on More Beer, they say they call it Nuggetsilla. Rich in pineapple, citrus, and pine. So now in this one, I'm getting some citrus at the end, and I think that's what I'm a little bit of what I'm tasting. I know it's double dry hop, but a little bit of what I'm tasting here is a little bit of that citrus. When normally with a West Coast IPA, it'd just be pine. But this hop here says pineapple, citrus, and pine flavors. So it can be used for bittering, flavor, and aroma. I believe I'm not sure, it said double dry hop, but I'm tasting, the more this warms up too, hit you with the pine, less on the end, more citrus. So I'm going to bring on, so this is called, what is this called again? Oh man, Sultana hops. Sultana. I've never heard of these hops, so I'm not sure. Chris, have you heard of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think once you mentioned that it's Denali, I was like, okay, Denali. That one's been around, I think, as a name a little bit more than Sultana.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I get two. I mean, kind of what you said about Pine Forward is definitely where this falls for me too. But I get a little touch of that kind of almost orange kind of pineapple. It's definitely on that end of the citrus rather than like grapefruit, lemon. Kind of it feels to me a little bit on the sweeter citrus side of things. But I mean, I was surprised that you said 80 IBUs because it to me is a total face punch of bitterness. Like I know I was just drinking a Helles. Oh, by the way, one of the shower beer from Youngblood is one of the beers in the Lager and Friends box. That was my last one. But
Show that again, Chris.
yeah, shower beer. That's bad.
Oh, okay, okay.
This is a new beer from Youngblood in Madison, and it's part of the Lager and Friends box. And I have to probably mention that it's a Youngblood beer because it doesn't have their signature stripes.
Yeah.
Pastel stripes that are part of the design. This is a new beer from them that's going in a different direction. They're going to brew this much more frequently than most of their other beers. So, something like once a month. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, the bitterness to me, it's a throwback beer, and the West Coast style. I think that's the reference with the Straight Out of Amherst, obviously, referencing Straight Out Compton, West Coast rap. But I think I mean, IPAs that taste like IPAs are coming back. I think I don't think there's backlash, but I think the pendulum of flavor preferences and taste swings pretty rapidly in the beer business. And I think the kind of very hoppy but not very bitter hazy IPAs and New England IPAs that we see so much of, I think that these West Coast IPAs are kind of a counterpoint, I guess, to that conversation. And I, for one, welcome it. I mean, I dig hazies too, but it's diversity of flavors and profiles, and I think that's all good.
I love this. I think it's great, and you're correct about I don't know, man. I have to articulate better the big IPAs because I love them so much, but on some level they're not that big of a punch to me because I look for that big punch. So I have to be able to articulate that in a way so that people can understand that there is a punch here. But there's some fruit here too, though. So like, this is I really like this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that we like about this is the kind of beer that made IPA. Every beer, even if they're not IPAs, is called an IPA now, basically. Like, milkshake IPAs, that's not an IPA. It's got hops in it, but it's not an IPA. But the reason we love, the reason IPA is the number one style in craft beer is because of beers like this. Now, that has obviously evolved and mutated and become a lot of other different things, but this is a proven formula, and I think it's pretty damn good. Reminds me of remember when Hop Stupid came out from Lagunitas, and we were like, oh my god, 100!
Oh my god! Right.
Holy shit, we're gonna die from the bitterness.
Yes.
And that was kind of a bitterness arms race for a while, and this to me is right up there with those old school, face punch IPAs. Remember Palate Wrecker too? That was another one.
Yes.
Flash.
Yes.
It's a fun beer, and I'm glad it exists. It's a seasonal, dropped maybe 3 weeks ago, something like that. So it'll be around a little bit. It's still plenty good, fresh. Fresh is not an issue yet. So
and get it while it's hot.
Get it while it's hot. I landed.
It's been a while since we've done a beer PSA. I almost forgot that I even.
I was wondering what box we were going to put this segment into.
Yeah, no, that fits perfectly. Yeah. So it's that time of the year. We can't call it by its name, but we'll call it the big dance.
We can call it by its name. Nobody's going to sue us.
No.
We're not exploiting it for commercial gain or anything.
Well, anyway, it's a take on the basketball. So it's the beer bracket challenge. And of course you're doing it. I didn't. I must have missed the Selection Saturday show.
It was pretty low key.
Was it?
Yeah, in Beer Baron HQ here. Yeah. So this is the Wisconsin beer bracket, and this is now the 10th year that we've been doing this. We meaning my former employer, the State Journal, which publishes my columns these days still.
Sure.
And it's pretty fun. I mean, there's a reason that this thing that we decided to do 10 years ago now is still going, and people seem to really love it. So what we do is we take a field of 64, and those every like March Madness is basketball. Every team has a shot. Every beer in Wisconsin has a shot at the crown. And the twist here is that instead of just picking, the favorite beers, you go round by round, and anybody who wants to votes for the which of these two beers do you want to see advance. And then we've got in the current round, we have 2 day or two through midnight tomorrow to get your first round votes in. You can join at any time. Doesn't have to be in the first round. And we just go round by round, and then eventually we've got a final Sweet 16, a Final Four, Frothy Four. We did.
Oh, sure.
But and then we will have a beer bracket champion for 2021. The champions are retired from future competitions, so the banner hoisted up into the rafters of the beer bracket arena, and then that's it for that. But let's see, going back in history, I mean, a lot of the kind of iconic beers of Wisconsin are now in those rafters. But let's see, last year I believe it was, pretty sure it was Lake Louise Warped Speed. Might have been the year before. No, that was 2 years ago. Last year was Kid Kolsch from New Glarus. New Glarus also has Moon Man retired and Spotted Cow, of course. Hopalicious has won. Ale Asylum's Ballistic won 1 year, which is a beer that I'm not even sure that they made last year. But that was an Amarillo IPA. Pretty good. Like that one. Blank on other winners. But it's a lot of fun, and you can register to, you got to register to vote. And what's in it for you, dear reader, is we've got some great prizes. There's a bunch of gift cards from Festival Foods, which is the sponsor again this year. I think it's 4 years running for them, which is awesome. And it's pretty good. It's pretty good booty. Like the grand prize is a $250 gift card. You could buy a lot of beer from. A lot of beer for $250, and by the way, not a lot of Milwaukee, not a lot of Festival Foods in the Milwaukee area, but I think everybody else kind of around the state knows how good Festival's bottle shops are. It's I'm glad that they're a partner in this, because their bottle shops do it right. They're not like your kind of Midland grocery store bottle shop. So
this is completely an unpaid endorsement for Festival. I was just there today, and it is legit. I mean, not even just for beer, all the liquors. So if you're a fan of whiskeys and vodkas, and what
is this, the Badger Whiskey Hour?
Yeah. I don't just drink beer. I don't get this dadly shape just by drinking beer all the time,
Well, hey, at least we'll be eligible for that next group of the stimulus shot, or the not the stimulus, the COVID shot.
The COVID shot. When they said, I think like 98% of Wisconsin qualifies for it because they're overweight.
I'm in. I checked.
Yeah, they're pretty much. I'm good.
Anyway, beer bracket.
And it's great that they sponsored that. So seating wise. So are you taking money from different breweries then? And
I am the selection committee here. So if you have any beefs, I'm the one to direct it to. And we do seed it. I seed every region. Just like 1 to 16. And this year we did regions by names. So like we've got I was kind of hoping that it would be kind of a neat, like 16 animal names, or 16 people names, or 16 place names. And when I started looking at the field for like who needed to be included, there was no way that was going to work out. So it's kind of a Frankenstein mashup of kind of different combinations that make the numbers work. So we've got people, person / animal is one of the regions. So like for example, the 116 seed there, the 116 game at the top of the bracket is New Glarus 2 Women.
Okay.
And Reitbauer from Sun Prairie has One-Eyed Jack, which is that's actually a card reference, but it's
the Jack is a person on the card.
Yeah, and then here's a good one. The next one is the 8-9 matchup in that region is Murder Hornet is my safe word from Youngblood. Youngblood, of course, had a lot of interesting names to choose from.
Yep.
And then Leaping Lemur from Hillsborough Brewing is a cream ale. So, like kind of having fun with that. There are actually 2 Murder Hornets in the person animal region, which is kind of fun. Murder Hornets, the Ale Asylum beer that I think we talked about that one.
Yep.
So then another region is Activity, Attribute, Object. So like Wisco Disco is the 16 seed there up against Cashmere Hammer from Three Sheeps as an object. And then there's like the cleanest category or region was beer, just beer stuff. So like Lakefront Lager, like there's not really anything going on there. And then the 16 seed there is Rock County Brewing's Belgian Vit. So like, beers that are named after styles, beers that are named after like attributes of beer, like Kettle Logic is included there from Enlightened because it's like the brewing kettle is like a beer thing. So
sure,
I don't know. It's a very inexact science on the regions. And then bottom right, the last region is the place and abstraction, because some of these beers have great names and they don't really. It's hard to like say what like that is like point special. Like what is point? It's special. It's I guess that could be an attribute or something, but it could be beer. But anyway, the happy place is the and point special is in there because it's a place too. So anyway, so happy place from third space is the 1 seed there, and then Pirates Cove, which is also a place, is from McFleshman's, which is another member of the Brewing box or the Lager and Friends box. Actually, Pirates Cove is in the Lager and Friends box. That is a Helles, and that's the one that's in the box from Lager and Friends. So very cool. It's a very inexact science, and it's always awkward giving these seedings, because like I think Happy Place is a fantastic beer. I think it has a good shot at winning. But the first time through, you kind of see you have to kind of see how these beers do. Like for forever, I was putting Summer Shandy in there as like actually not forever, but for a few years I was putting Summer Shandy in there because it's like one of the best selling beers in the country. Like, from craft wise, I guess. And yeah, I can argue Liney's isn't, whatever. But it kept on getting smoked. It was like the constant 14 like it would be a 3 seed and it would lose to the 14 seed like 3 years in a row. So eventually, like now I'm like, okay, like it's still in there. It's a 10 seed this year. I would be surprised if it beats Cave Ale from Potosi,
next year, if you need a selection committee, I think Greg and I will volunteer to help you with that.
Back in the old days, I used to get together with my copy desk friends from the State Journal, and we'd get together and like cross out names and like, okay, but what about this? And we'd argue about the 64 brewery, whether it should be this brewery or that brewery. And,
right.
And I would think by then,
because like I would have multiple beers from a single brewery in there, but these days, like you can't, I mean, there's more than, there's got to be close to 200 breweries in the state now, maybe more. So like, I consider these, there's only a handful. It's obviously it's a Madison kind of focused thing. So most of the breweries in the Madison area are in there. And then there's only a handful that are not distributed kind of more widely. either in like Milwaukee and Madison or, other places. So there's definitely kind of a perspective there, but I think I've gotten a lot. People love the beer bracket, and I get email all the time from fans saying, this is like I really look forward to this every year. And, this kind of like helps me determine where I'm going on my summer road trip to I'm going to go to Superior and see Earth Rider or something, something like that. So it's very flattering. And I think it's a lot of fun. And if you follow up through, week by week, use the tag, the hashtag WI beer bracket and debate, discuss, prepare to get outraged for all the upsets and how can people vote this beer over that beer?
Yeah. Chris, where do so I'm gonna put it out on all my media. Where else can you find the bracket?
It is exclusively on Madison.com. So go.madison.com/beer bracket is the kind of short link. We were just checking on it, and it looks like there's something messed up with it right now. So I'll have to check with my if you click on that play game tab in the middle, that's what happens. So we're gonna have to get that remedied. But you can register, and you'll get I think you get emails every time a new round starts. We're gonna be crowning the champion.
Right.
I believe voting finishes on the Monday of the national championship basketball game, which we're not going to call the NCAA whatever. But it runs over the same course as the basketball tournament. Yep. And that's just is a kind of a good pacing. We basically go through 2 rounds a week.
It's awesome.
Well, yeah. All right. Anything else, Chris, on that?
I think I've said plenty. It's a lot of fun.
You can call or text us on a Badger Beer Line hot hour, 608-579-3050. You can email us at badgerbeerhour@gmail.com. We take questions all the time. You can find us on badgerbeerhour.com, and you can find us on YouTube. And on that note, we will see you guys next April 21st. Late.
21st.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At 8 p.m. Verified, as I just verified it while we were online here. It's that weird week where the first day is the 7th day or Wednesday or whatever. Yeah.
That's the latest date we'll have ever.
Yes, and I'll see you fellas next month.